Want me to only focus on hot items? Sure, pay me to watch YouTube for the day. I walk into work this morning with my main manager and his boss waiting for me. They tell me that I seem to follow my own priority list. It's the one given to me by my main manager. Instead, they want me to drop all my priorities and only focus on the major items at hand. We had a bad audit and needed to fix a lot of stuff to be in compliance. Anyway, I tried to explain that when I have downtime, such as waiting for someone to complete a task so that I can move forward on said hot item, I would continue to work my other priorities. They got angry/frustrated immediately and explained that I should not shift focus no matter what. So here I am, writing this post at work, watching YouTube for the past 3 hours and waiting for someone, who's not scheduled to work today, which I tried explaining but was cut off, to complete their task so I can continue on with the day. Update 1. Thank you to you/Bnago and you/FoolishStone. Using your comments, I instructed my team to have the manuals and any documents we can think of that attribute to the audit open on our desktops. I'm going to send an email soon saying we're preparing for whatever can be thrown at us, but we're in a holding pattern, to cover our ass. We're using this downtime to update our resumes and write letters of recommendation for each other as a just in case. Although we don't think we're losing our jobs, but you never know. Also, be CCing all the emails as a last resort backup in case they nuke the email server and delete comms. This could be an overreaction, but after reading more comments I feel like it's the safe play. Another thanks to everyone commenting great ideas and tips. Cheers. Update 2. Wowza, thank you for all the support. I really appreciate everyone's input. Sorry for the late update, the ad hoc meeting took an hour. My main boss's boss likes to complain a lot. Also, update 2. For those of you who may not have read all the comments, I had an ad hoc meeting with my main manager, G, let's call his boss E, to CYA, cover your, well our, ass. I started off by explaining that we're in a holding pattern currently but have been using this time to prepare for further development in the audit, as well as explain the current roadblock, the guy who's on vacation. They tried calling him during the meeting to see if this is true. It's on the PDO calendar, but who uses that, right? He inventively didn't answer because he does not take his work cell home, so they called his personal cell a few times until he answered. He's unable to come back to finish anything until early next week, so again we're in a holding pattern. They are now very upset but still want us to focus on the audit, so again I said while we wait for further progress, or until someone else from his department can cover that work, we should and want to work on our other priorities, so they do not pile up. My main manager wants us to work on it too. However, his boss said no. Work only on the hottest priority, the audit, then stormed off. My main manager is just dumbfounded right now and said just keep updating yourselves on current progress and wait for further instruction from me. Just look busy when he comes around. I don't have anything to do either. Might as well listen to the boss, right? Edit, grammar and spelling. Honestly, I should use this time to work on that. EDIT2, as you/Adalhow commented, I emailed them to confirm this new workflow method and BCC'd my personal email. I also asked if my team should only focus on this as well. They agreed. So now we're all watching videos/on Instagram, not sure what else to do with this time other than look focused on work when they walk around. Edit 3, added the update 1. Edit 4, added update 2.
Now to the comments. Hope you got a clarification in print. They will gladly throw bodies under the bus when SHTF.
OP replied. That's a great point. I just sent off an email confirming the new workflow method they wanted. Thank you you/Adalhow. I have been a lurker in this sub long enough to now know I should BCC my personal email. I owe a large thank you to previous posters.
Forward their response back to your personal email. BCCing it will cut it out of their replies. Gold star on your time card. Following instructions. Is there any other way to look at it?
OP replied. Ahaha thank you slash kwidirk. I wonder how long they will keep this up. Audits take weeks to fix and respond to. Unfortunately, the main person I need to fix this roadblock is on vacation until Thursday next week. I hope they're having an awesome camping trip. They don't take their work phone with them on family trips.
They don't take their work phone with them on family trips. Smart person. Thanks for the good laugh. Have a great day being paid doing nothing.
OP replied. I'm glad I made your day better.
An enjoyable yes post, OP, and you've got a cracking sense of humor.
OP replied. Thank you. I honestly don't really know what else to do with my time. Bread making seems fun. Anyone want a loaf?
Pumpernickel please. Tell them to buy lunch for the team so you can stay focused.
OP replied. That's a great idea. I'll mention this to my boss and see what he can do.
Good God. If your audit is bad, but your workflow isn't, you don't sabotage the workflow to fit the audit. You approach whoever is in charge of the audit and point out the discrepancy, then discuss if the audit metrics need adjusted. Either the audit is measuring the wrong crap, or the managers are just attacking the wrong link in the chain. Since you are all waiting on other departments for these critical tasks, either some other department is dropping the ball, or the problem is how the entire system is organized. 100% either another department, management itself, or a poorly designed audit based on your description and the outcome of their improvements, heavily leaning toward management being the line of fault with how they handled the audit results and directing your action. So good move to work on those resumes. Well, now you realize they are going to ban YouTube, because that is obviously the problem. Have you emailed your main manager about this?
OP replied. We're working on showing that we're preparing for the audit by reading manuals and looking over documentation. I emailed my main manager and CC'd his manager that was in the meeting.
Oh, I see the situation more clearly now. Your manager's manager, who has no grasp of details, told you to only focus on hot issues. Little does he know that the cold issues create a foundation the hot ones stand on. Classic case of heal the symptom. This always backfires. Short-sighted. I would either hunker down and record all communications or just start looking. Also, do not put anything traceable in Reddit/internet post about this issue until you are out of company. Need an update after your meeting? Please.
OP replied. Just posted an update in the main post. It took way too long to get to the end lol.
Just read it. Good grief, these upper bosses sound like butt faces. Yeah, get your entire team to work on their CVS and such. Document, 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 then document what you documented so that you can find it easily. Maybe even copy HR in regards to this mess. Because mess it is. If you have time, start reading through the book on how to conduct the audit, so that when the time comes you can follow the book and maybe even hose the boss that way. Do a seminar type of thing with your fellow employees, so that everybody in your group is up to date on how to conduct the audit.
3-2-1 copies 2 types of media, at least 1 copy off-site.
Good to know. I've never heard this before. That second update, man. What are they thinking? It certainly seems like the issue with failing the audit came from the top. Use the time for work education LOL, learn new things that might either make your current job easier, once it continues, or sets you up for another job, maybe learn coding or something related. I'm just spitballing here, but it sounds like these poor management practices are what resulted in the audit in the first place. Good on you for trying your best to be a proper cog in the machine, but just protect yo neck and enjoy the easy work days while you got I reckon. Good luck. Rather than watching YouTube, instead use your time wisely listening to podcasts. The Ancient World, The History of Rome, The History of Byzantium, Revolutions Podcast, Dan Carlin, Hardcore History.
A just word of warning: the guy who does History of Byzantium is much worse than Mike Duncan. 1. At being diligent about research and at providing historiographical. 2. Context for the stuff he cites. For example, in History of Rome, Duncan would often relate some of the really grotesque stories about the debauchery of the emperors. I mean, how can you have a History of Rome podcast without telling us the spicy stuff? But he also let people know that the only source for most of these stories is Suetonius, who was less interested in giving an actual history and more interested in slandering his political opponents, and who'd just make shit up when he thought it'd make the story better. The History of Byzantium guy, on the other hand, tends to take everything he cites credulously and to miss out on contemporary context. For example, he did a few episodes on the idea of Constantinople as the Second Rome and Moscow as the Third Rome, without really clearly indicating that he knew that even though the idea of Constantinople as the Second Rome is totally uncontroversial, the idea of Moscow as the Third Rome is pretty tightly linked to contemporary authoritarian Russian nationalism. If you enjoy the Byzantium guy, that's fine, but you can't quite trust him in the same way you can trust Mike Duncan. But, yeah. Thor and Revolutions are both totally awesome, and I'm amazed that someone who's not a trained academic historian could put together podcasts that are so well made and well researched. Another I'd strongly suggest is The History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps, which is done by a truly brilliant historian of philosophy who's also great at making stuff that could be pretty dry into a podcast that's actually really fun. And right now, I'm just getting started on In the Shadow of Utopia, which is about the Khmer Rouge period in Cambodia. I got the recommendation from r/Ask Historians, and everyone there says the research is stellar. I'm really enjoying the series so far, though I'm just at the start and I know it's going to get pretty grim later on. Footnotes. 1. For those not familiar, Duncan did the History of Rome podcast and is right now finishing up the Revolutions podcast. 2. Historiography is the history of history, meaning the history of how ideas about historical events have changed over time. For example, a lot of people's first introduction to Roman history is Gibbon, whose work is so fun to read but which embraces interpretations of events that aren't really compatible with contemporary knowledge about the time period. For example, Gibbon's "The Roman Empire fell because Christianity made them weak" idea is just, well, the kindest thing I can say about it is that it's hard to square with the actual historical records that we have now. However, learning about how we approached Roman history 300 years ago gives us insight into not just the history of history, but also lets us see/potentially correct for the preconceptions that we've inherited from now discredited earlier ideas. Understanding history requires understanding how our ideas of events have changed over the centuries, and Mike Duncan is legitimately the only non-academic I've seen who gets that right. 3. I mean, it was the Second Rome. It was so the Second Rome that it would be almost fair to call actual Rome the First Constantinople instead.
Can I add the History of Britain podcast?